There you go. Is that better?
It's recording. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Let me go here. I might go full screen for me. Alrighty. So basically, I've been asked by Canards to do a bit of a talk on workplace health and safety and business risk. I've been doing a few of these with Canards over the years. We've sort of travelled around to regional areas at the same time, which has been great, to just give some business people some better ideas of the risk profile and ideas of what's happening out there in the wider world. So before we start, like everything, up front we have a disclaimer, and that is basically everything we talk about here today is high level. It is not pertinent to every bit of law, code of practice, Australian standard. So it's a conversation we're having, which is very high level. And then if you have anything specific later, by all means reach out and we can go into depth. Or if you've got a really tricky situation, we then refer to legal teams. Bit about myself, basically, I'm the Managing Director across Asia Pacific. It's a service company specialising in health, safety, environment, quality, risk, human resource and business management consulting. Basically, we deal with everyone from sole traders right through to corporates, right throughout the Asia Pacific region. Based in Rockhampton, came home to base everything out here. With technology these days, we can go anywhere in the world. I started off my career basically in safety on a construction site as a safety person. Unfortunately, witnessed a fatality, and ever since then, I sort of devoted my career basically to workplace health and safety and make sure no one else has to go through what it went through. So when I go out and talk to people, I actually have the conversation from the heart and experience. I'm not one of these people who walk around with a little badge and say, look, you need to do this, do that. It's always for a reason. You'll always hear the common sounding board, a business as big as asset is its people. And I can't say that any louder to any business. Your people make your business. They are your best asset. Unless you have people in your business and managing your business for you, making a profit so you can have a nice house, holiday or anything like that, you just don't have it. There are certain rules which we have to encompass now to protect people in those businesses. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a sole trader, fish and chip shop, right through to a government body. We have the Work Health and Safety Act and regulations now, and basically that legislation is we have a safe system of work. We also have safe handling of goods and substances, so that's like chemicals all the way from bleach right through to explosives to nuclear waste and things like that. One of the provisions in there, every employer or business owner has to provide information, instruction and training. And this is the big one that a lot of the companies and small businesses don't actually understand. It is very clear because it actually overlaps under workplace health and safety legislation as well as fair work. So they both go hand in hand in here. So I'm lucky in Queensland, you can't get what we call double jeopardy. So workplace health and safety inspector can't come in and then hit you with a fine and then Fair Work come and hit you with the same one. They can't double up. What they can do is have a look at different areas. So it's very important that information, instruction and training is paramount to every business on every size. So the training part is mainly when the employer first comes on board. Induction. Everyone associates induction with construction and things. It's any business that's telling an employee their processes, their procedures, who the key people are in the business, where to go for first aid, where to go for a complaint if you're having an issue. All those stuff, it is so important that those things are looked at. And of course, assessing risk and implementing appropriate measures to manage and control them. Now, some businesses do this very well. Some businesses still have no idea how to risk assess. And we're taught how to risk assess as kids. We get up in the morning, we go to have a shower, we put a hand in in the shower. If it's too cold, we don't get in. We just risk assess something. If it's too hot, you don't get in. It's the same principle. It's trial and error on what you can do. And luckily for us, when we, as we get older, it becomes more of a mechanism, and especially when you come into business, we then have to look at all types of stuff. This is a bit of a snapshot of Queensland at the moment, especially central Queensland, of the workforce, the businesses and the employers. So as you can see here, there's quite a diverse bit of business, education, training, construction, public, mining, manufacturing. As you can see, it's split up over quite a vast area. Now that is central Queensland and northern Queensland together. Okay? So that is taken off the Queensland Workplace Health and Safety website today. So it's the latest information they've published out by the ABS. So as you can see, there's 78,000 businesses out there, and 40% of the population are employed by staff there. So it's quite a bit of people around the place, and very diverse. What we need to sort of stress a little bit before we get into a bit more nitty-gritties is a lot of the workplace health and safety legislation was put in to protect people. It started back in the 1800s in England, where they tried to protect women in manufacturing and kids in coal mines. And has grown ever since in proportionally in changing all the time. Nowadays, it's set up to protect people again, and that's why we have workers' comp statistics up in front of you now, because most of the rules we put in place now as legislation is trying to prevent people getting hurt in the workplace. So as you can see there, about 71,000 incidents in Queensland. There are only approximately saying 39 deaths. Now, I want to stress on this one, when they say 39 deaths, I mean, that's a lot. Yes, there's a lot more car accidents and stuff like that, but that is basically instantaneous. That number does not take into consideration when someone's been using chemicals for the last 10 years, gets cancer, and then passes away as a contributing factor there, or asbestos, or silicosis, as they're saying now. That does not reflect in that number. So usually it's a lot more there, and that's when the workers' comp, when it comes into it and things like that as well. It's costing us in Queensland about $680 million paid out annually in workers' comp. So it's cheap. And the average claims is 43 days. Okay, and it takes quite a while, it takes a lot of management, and it costs a lot of money to actually manage the process. In central Queensland, North Queensland, most of it is manufacturing workers, 2.5 times the injury rate, and males between 25 to 34. Now, why is that? I've got no idea, mainly because they probably sit there and say, she'll be right, it won't happen to me. And that's when we have a lot of incidents. So as you can see that, with up here with what causes the injuries, hitting on objects is basically walking into things like that, being struck by them. By moving, that is cars, trolleys, cranes, things like that. Falls trips, that is still very, very high, 17%. That's still from people in the workplace slipping over some water or something, because they haven't got the behaviours in the workplace to, if somebody spills, stop, clean it up so no one else, you'd be right, I won't slip over it. It's there, so we need to have a conscious effort in a workplace on what to do. And then we've got our hazardous manual tasks. That's soft tissue injuries, lifting, pushing, pulling. And that's why in a lot of construction, as well as aged care and hospitals are the biggest ones for those ones, because they're trying to manual handle and manipulate people and push things. And if they don't warm up properly and they haven't got the right posture, that is when we have the soft tissue injury. And if they don't look after it, it actually becomes worse. And then we have more than a 2-day off. We then have 6 weeks, 6 months, or we have a back claim in. And that's the employer. Back claims will, if it injures someone and they don't look after it, your premium's looking at about $150,000, $160,000 worth to your business. More importantly, you've hurt somebody, which we don't want to do. So with the workers' comp statistics, we always show that just to give people a snapshot as to why it's important to have safe systems of work. As you can see there, the different trades, again, this is Central Queensland versus Queensland. For us here, we can see here the construction is quite high, maybe because of our ratio, which is pushing it right up. Manufacturing and fishing is always, when you look at a national level, fishing and agriculture is always very high all the time. These are the main 5 mechanics of injury: body stress, falls, trips and falls as a national. They're being hit by objects and vehicle accidents is mainly journey claims and things like that. Workers' comp for Central Queensland at the moment. Again, statistics you can see up there is 2016-17. We're looking at 3.6 now. Again, why is this so important? Because this affects everyone's business, not just financially, it affects them emotionally. And also, have we got people off work because they've had an injury, whether it's physical or mental at the moment? It impacts our whole business on how we need to move forward and have a very good workplace. The average days lost per claim in Central Queensland at the moment is 59.3 days. It's a lot higher than the average everywhere else. Now, why is that? For me, that is because most of the employers in this region don't know how to manage a workers' comp return to work. Don't know how to get people back into the workplace quick enough, and then actually don't know how to have the right processes in place to manage that person while they're in the workplace too. Some of the people we consulted say, look, I just don't want them in here, but the problem is the law says you need to get them back. And it's better for them mentally if we can get people back into the workplace a lot quicker. This is the big one at the moment, especially since COVID hit. We are having a spike in workplace incidents around mental health and things like that. So it's getting quite large. The claims are going up. $43 million is being paid out and most of that is actually, believe it or not, comes from anxiety. That's where most of the claims are coming from there, where they don't have the right support at work, where the supervisors don't understand, can't recognise when someone's not coping. And by law, we have to have processes in place now. Always did, but it's more to the forefront now, so we can actually understand, look at the disorders and give enough support. Now, we've got all of the other third parties out there, the non-profits can help you out, the Beyond Blues and stuff like that, works in construction. Refer them to them, get them to talk to them, bring them into your workplaces. They're more than happy to come and have a conversation. Mental health at the moment is a real thing. It is nothing to be sneezed at. It is nothing to be ashamed of. And one of the conversations I have on a regular basis around this topic is people still say, oh, there's a big stigma. Unfortunately, yes, there is a stigma with it. And people see that as a stigma. And we need to break those barriers. Owners of businesses are the key instrumental people here, as well as the managers, to help break that down. Okay, can we all afford 85 days of someone being away from the business? No. The ramifications of that? Do we add casual staff in to fill the void? Are they skilled? Are they unskilled? Does that put the production line or the service reputation of your restaurant, cafe, news agent, bank, or anything like that? So mental health is a real thing that everyone really, really needs to take heed of and look at the process. And it's quite easy, like I said, just have the conversation with the people and allow them and refer them to the right people. And if someone wants to talk to me about that, we've got a whole list of people they can be referred to help that scenario. The gritty stuff. So currently in Queensland, we have the Work Health and Safety legislation. We've got the Act, the regulations, the Electrical Safety Act, and the Safety and Recreation of Water. It's for most businesses. We've also then got the Mining and Quarrying Act, sits totally separately. They are, looks really nothing like this. They tried to match them up under what the common language they've been using for many years is harmonisation. They haven't been able to do that, unfortunately, from state to state and within the state itself. But the main one is everything hinges is off the Act, and then everything falls out from underneath that. So within the Act is legislation passed by Parliament. So it actually has to go to government, it has to be presented, it'll be read, it'll come back, it'll go back in again, and it's not easily changed whatsoever. It is high level. The Act, when we get to the regulations, their guidelines and dictate the legal permit. So they're actually more prescriptive. Instead of saying once upon a time you'll have something, these people say you shall have this, and this. So it's more prescriptive, and they go basically hand in hand. Underneath those, we have codes of practices. Now, codes of practices were mainly set up in the beginning around the construction industry. Those codes now have gone out to agriculture. They've gone out to manufacturing, and basically they were taken out of the regulation some time ago. They have now been put back in, so a workplace health and safety officer can actually come into your business and say, I'm now going to give you a notice under the code of practice because you are not following best practice, which the code of practice is, and the regulation now enforces the code of practice again. So you've got three instruments there, the Act, the regs, and the code of practice, which can all be enforced by law. The Australian standards, again, they're a minimum set, and they are written by industry groups, and they also set up the best way forward for standards there. And of course, with all the regs and changes coming in, the one that has the most attention at the moment is this one, the provision for manslaughter prosecutions. Now, that is going all around Australia at the moment. Each state is taking it up little bit by little bit. Queensland has actually had 2 prosecutions now under this, and there have been people put into jail. So how do all these rules affect us? So the Workplace Safety Act, the regs, the framework, all workers are protected by the Work Health Safety Act, including employees, contractors, subcontractors, outworkers. They're contractors or employees who perform their work at home. So there's been a lot of outworkers during COVID. So everyone's been told, sorry, you can't come to work. Please stay at home. We still need to be productive. Under the Act, they're actually classified then as outworkers. So this would be a lot of people in the old days used to be sitting at home sewing. A whole lot of clothes and make it say sit in their own home, and they would manufacture and do things like that. The ramifications come across now. Apprentices, trainees, work experience students. So if you've got someone coming in to do work experience from high school, they are covered, and so are volunteers. They all have to fall underneath your workers' comp policies also, and employees who perform work. So that means if you've got a business and someone comes in and they've got to maintain your shop or do something like that, and you haven't actually checked that they've got the right things in place, they actually fall under your policies, your workers' comp, they get hurt. Therefore, puts your premium up. So you've got to be very, very conscious of that all the time. So it also provides general protection for the public sector. So people walking past, coming into your shops or into your business, the workplace, the Work Health Safety Act and regulations actually protect them too. So it all comes back down to reducing risk for people and harm. These days we call a business a PCBU, a person conducting a business or undertaking. That was all the new terminology came back in many years ago when they tried to harmonise. And basically people have got to provide maintenance of a work environment without risk. Again, with the provision of maintenance of plant and structures. So that's anything from a laptop right to a forklift, to an aeroplane, anything like that. You've got to provide safe plant. So if you've got forklifts, or if you've got ladders is a piece of plant and it's got a broken sty on it or bent, it's your job then to get it fixed or replace it. Don't keep using it, because under the Act, you're actually comparable now of actually going against it. Safe use, handling, and storage of plant, equipment, structures, substances. So as you said, there's quite a bit there. The training and instruction is the biggest that I cannot stress enough to anyone. It is huge. You've got to keep records, and you need to make sure that people are well and truly aware of the requirements of your business. And if you're the owner of the business, it's your responsibility now to making sure that people actually understand and be given the information. Even if you're a CEO, that is a requirement you've got. So, good old coronavirus. Yes, it's real. Yes, it's covered under work health and safety legislation for the workplace, employee safety, and working at home. If you're sent home and you're working, you're still covered under work health and safety while you're working at home. Okay, so that was one of the biggest issues when people started going home and working at home. The employer needs to make sure that their home was safe. You know, they didn't trip over in their own kitchen or something like that. So it made it very hard. And as a consultant, it's very hard for me to advise anyone without going and looking at a scenario and to try and mitigate how do you do it. It's a bit of hands on head. For a lot of restaurants and places like that, they needed the COVID safe plans. They are managed by Queensland Health, not Workplace Health and Safety. Workplace Health and Safety are out there basically make sure that you have a plan in place, because that ensures the safety of the people. Queensland Health managed to make sure the content is correct, the spacing and everything like that. Fines, these are all the nasty bits. You can go out and you get improvement notices. Improvement notices basically where you contravene the Act or the regs. They come in and they say, you haven't done this right, it's not death defying, we're going to give you 2 days, a week, a month to fix it. And basically you go from there. They can also issue fines, on the spot fines start from about $250 and go up to $700. If you contravene the Act, it's like the speeding, with penalty points. At the moment, one penalty point in Queensland is $133.45. So if you go out there and you get 10 penalty points, put the decimal point one way. If it's 100 penalty points, it goes up. And of course, at the moment, some of the fines that you'll see shortly are around $3 million. Manslaughter, we've got the category 1, 2, and 3. Category 1 was the one I'll show in a minute. It was basically done with SeaWorld, not SeaWorld, the other amusement park that had the fatalities where the malfunctioned a little bit, and basically they got hit fairly hard. There was another one where a car wrecking company had a fault. The company got prosecuted, and so did the 2 directors. So there's a lot of big figures there, and like most things, it's how you handle it and how the courts see it at the time. Improvement notice are the easy ones. They're the ones you want so you can talk and get fixed. Prohibition notice is stop work. Doesn't matter what business you're in. So all of a sudden, if you're in a building site or you're building an awning onto your restaurant or something like that, or there's people on your restaurant roof fixing the vent to extract or you smoke or something, they come and find something that's really not right. They'll issue a prohibition notice that has stopped work totally. And basically you cannot start work again until you put an action plan in place, change it, buy new equipment, change things around and submit it. Then they will release the prohibition, okay? When you're in business to go out to tender for work, one of the questions they'll ask you in your tender process, have you had any prohibition or lost time injuries or deaths? And if you start putting, yes, I've had 2 prohibition notices, it doesn't help your business actually winning tenders. Plus, if they've identified something that actually takes a prohibition notice, there's something very wrong that you've been doing in your business, which you're probably unaware of, had no idea with your experience, or you're turning a blind eye to it and you're being caught. Non-disturbance notice, basically, if someone comes along and there's been an event and it's a notifiable incident, which is under the Act, there's quite a few things there. Basically, you'll get a notice saying, do not touch that machine, do not touch this. And basically, there's nothing you can do about it. You can tie up any part of your business for quite a period of time while they start coming around and start doing experimental testing certain bits out. So what do you need in a business here under the workplace health and safety and the electrical? You need a safe system of work, you need procedures, you need management commitment, which is the biggest thing. Management or the owners need to be committed to workplace health and safety, or else you shouldn't be in business, because the ramifications these days are just too high. And the personal fines as well as injuring people is not what you want. Consultation is the key. Talk with your staff. This is what we're planning on doing. What do you reckon? And I guarantee you, usually someone from the floor will have a better idea on what you can do. You need supervisor and training, and you need a current workers' comp policy. That is the basic that you need to do to run a business in Queensland. Risk assessment is always the biggest thing that we're talking about before, by assessing things. Risk management has a lot of jargon. You'll hear about your bank manager talking about risk assessment. Are you financially viable? What's the risk to the bank? It doesn't matter what industry you are, you will then hear what we might hear as a job safety analysis, a JSA or JECA or SWMS, SWIM. They're all just risk assessments. That is all it is, but it's just in a different format or different industry. If you're working in a high risk activity in the state or in the other ones, you need a safe work method statement, and that legislates what it needs to have in there. Once we do a risk assessment, you need to do hazard ID. You need to look at the hazard, which is situated what it is. Now, we talked about putting a hand in the hot water before to find out, yes, it was hot. What is the potential harms? You're going to burn me now, so that's when you're looking at your hazard ID. We always talk about the eliminations. So there's always 6. You can either eliminate it, substitute it, isolate it, put your engineering controls in. Everyone usually tends to go with the administration of PPE. Problem with PPE, it's like the Michelin Man. You dress up like the Michelin Man, all you need is one little hole in that suit, and the whole suit goes down, and you're not protected anymore. So it's very important that you get this right. Talking before about everything interlocks with each other. You've got work health and safety legislation, interlocks with workers' comp legislation. It also interlocks with IR, where it comes into access to sites and right of entry and everything like that. It goes back to the Workplace Health and Safety Act too. And Fair Work, again, a lot of the things in there where you need to have policies and that, especially around training and stuff like that, still interlocks with that. So all these things combined together is a lot of work, and you need these things to be able to run a business efficiently and be able to, unfortunately, tick most of the boxes that we have to have for compliance. We're very highly run by compliance in this country, and each little division like to have their own little things, and unfortunately it just really winds up. Some of the big ones of note of late, like I said, Juma fatalities, $3 million, fines there, multiple safety breaches, directors, supervisor fined because the supervisor wanted to fast track something, and he just said, oh, look, that person's got a ticket, and they didn't. And the individual, the supervisor, got charged $3,000. So it doesn't just happen to companies. they also go for individuals that are not doing the right thing. That's the big one that was done on the coast. Specifically pointed this one out because the company officers, the directors, okay, 10 months jail, whole suspended. So you got 2 directors, had the same. The company was also fined. So directors, company is a big whammy. So that was the test case, and it's, you know, watch this space for people that are not looking after their businesses and not looking after the best asset, which is their people. How do we do all this? Well, it's basically consultation. How do we do it? We do meetings, we do leadership. The owners are in there, they're walking around talking with the people, trying to find out what to do. If you need help, you've got a whole lot of scenarios there that you can do. You've got employer organisations. You've got WorkSafe Queensland. You've got a hotline there. You've got people like us. You've got online prepared documents that you can go and find online and just buy them. The danger with that is not set up for your business. You've got to be very careful. WorkSafe Queensland, again, is a website, and Business Queensland, which is the government website. There is a multitude of information there that's so handy for anyone trying to run a business. They have forms, they have information on basically everything. So it's a great thing to do there. How do you stay informed? Again, get online, register with these things, the Work Health Safety e-news, get all these LinkedIn groups, industrial, they will send stuff out to you all the time. It's a big subject, and the only way you can do it, you can't keep ahead of the changes. I get about 5 emails a day with legislation changes all around Australia. So unless you're on these free groups, you can't keep up to speed. So, questions, because that was trying to ram it all down in the time slot.
Done well, Simon.
So, any questions?
Any questions out there? There's nothing come through the chat box at all at this point in time, Simon.
One chat.
I think you've given a pretty good overview of everything that workplace health and safety encompasses, mate. So, no, thank you.
Yeah, well, see, it's always a big problem is that it depends on what type of your business you're in. It affects you differently. So if you're running a service station compared to a construction company, the basics are all still the same, but it's a different way which you look at it and live with it, compared to a restaurant versus your fish and chip shop around the corner. It's just so diverse. You can't really, unless you've got a target audience. If I've got questions, that's easier for me to answer. So if anyone's got anything, please just ask away.
Simon, one question's come through the chat box. It's just it's an interesting one. Actually, I'll be interested to find your view on this. The question is, how does it apply to clubs? So I'm guessing it's sort of like clubs that sort of run events and stuff like that have, I'd imagine, volunteers and like, I suppose, are they exposed, and to what extent?
Absolutely. Any business type, even your non-profits, and this is where a lot of the non-profits get themselves in trouble, because they think, oh, it doesn't affect us. I'm on the board, so I'm a director of a non-profit. It doesn't. Well, it does, I'm afraid. When the Work Health and Safety Act is very clear. Because when it comes down to, are you an employee? The definition of what an employer and an employee is crystal clear. Working for a club, yes. Volunteer, you're still covered under it.
Very good. Any other questions? Simon, I saw on your slides, did you have one more slide to go through?
You
Or?
said you had questions for me. No, I think that was it, mate.
Very good. Well, in the absence of any more questions,
Yeah,
we might,
just a holding page.
yep, might wrap it up there. So, Lisa, thanks for that. Lisa said great info. Simon, thanks very much as always. So,
No
yeah.
worries at
So
all.
Sean, we'll email a copy of the presentation out tomorrow. We'll email the
If anyone's
slides
got
out.
any questions, please go to so they can go straight to the appropriate government websites.
Yep. Thank you. Excellent. All right, we might wrap it up there. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for
Alrighty.
coming, for all your support throughout the year with these webinars. I've seen a number of similar faces attending, so I hope you've been getting a lot out of it. Simon, thank you for your time, your experience and expertise. That it's always very valuable. And as Simon said, there is a lot of changes going on all the time, so jump on those free resources to keep yourself abreast of that information.
Excellent.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon.
Bye.
Can I get you to stop recording?